Welcome to the First State Kopites podcast. It's episode 14 of season 3. This is a podcast for Liverpool supporters in Delaware and friends of Liverpool supporters in Delaware. Thanks for listening on your preferred platform. We're available on all of them, and you can also find us on YouTube, which may be interesting this week. Not specifying why, but if you get a chance to look at the YouTube video, you might want to guess who one of us is dressed up for Halloween as. Yes, it's October 31st, Halloween, and Liverpool just played Brighton, and for the third time in 5 home games, we drew. But it's the first time we lost a 2-goal lead. So we're going to talk about that. Before we get into that, we're joined today by Andre from the Berlin Supporters Club, chairman of the Berlin Supporters Club. And we are going to talk a little bit about his matchday experience, what's going on in Germany overall in terms of supporters groups, and then we'll head into a bit more of a deep dive into Brighton, and then maybe we'll look forward a little bit towards Atletico. We play on Wednesday, and then next Sunday we play away at West Ham. But I do want to say thank you to Hytham, who's joining us from Chicago with his brand new microphone, for inviting Andre on today. Daz and Sean would have been here, but they're apparently busy with Halloween candy. I think that's the story. Okay, so Andre, welcome. It's great to have you on.
Thank you. Hi there.
And Hytham, join it. You can kind of join in with a question, but I'll kick off with tell us a little bit about the history of the supporters club in Berlin and the wider supporters club in Germany.
So the supporters club in Berlin, I think we started in 2013. Yes, kind of at the beginning of this special season. I just moved to Berlin a few years back and kind of felt bored on the weekends, and I wanted to watch football. I didn't want to pay so much for the subscription, so I went into the pubs, and it was always fun having Scouser tourists or just Liverpool fans somewhere in Irish pubs or something. And I said, mate, there has to be some Liverpool fans in Berlin. And then it started. I opened a Facebook page, and a few years later, we are over a few hundred members in Berlin, and have been a role model for, I think, 9 new clubs now. 9 new fan clubs, yeah.
That's awesome. So where are the other supporters clubs?
The one that came after Berlin was Hamburg and Dresden. Then we have Munich and a few ones in smaller places, but all over Germany. There's some parts that are not yet covered, but we have this what's called the Redmen Germany. It's something like an umbrella for all of them. We have like the same membership fee, and we have like a solidarity community, working together, doing ticketing together, and all these things, and we are all over Germany, and of course Denmark, because they are supporting us. They are much bigger than us. They have I think 20 fan clubs now, and altogether we are kind of 5,000 supporters, 500 in Germany, 4,500 in Denmark, working together and doing all the things together that you love about Liverpool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I didn't know that Denmark was that big.
Crazy.
Yeah. So Hytham, do you have a question? I've got plenty stored up myself, but
so Andre, just what is your Liverpool story? Like, how did you become a fan?
I tried to make it short. I started in 2001. The Reds played in Dortmund, which was around the corner where I grew up. I grew up in Schalke and was a Schalke supporter. And we had a very, very tough season that year. We nearly became German champions for 2 minutes. Was on the pitch and partying and stuff, and it was horrible because then Bayern Munich won because of a very, very bad free kick. And I didn't want to watch football at all, but my uncle said, I got tickets for the final in Dortmund. Do you want to go? And I said, never been to aside from the 97 final, never been to a final, and didn't like the Dortmund stadium, don't like Dortmund and all these things. So we went, and it kind of started. I fell in love with the team at that point, but it took a while till it really hit off. Always following them, watching the games, but at that time streaming wasn't very famous or popular. There wasn't even like something like The Zone, or I think Sky just started like really doing streaming, and everything was expensive. And a few years later, I couldn't stop watching. And when I moved to Berlin about 11 years ago, I started watching nearly every game. So yeah, and it kind of grew all the time. It's yeah.
Awesome.
You start following them, you start meeting the people. I mean, Berlin is a tourist city, so you have a lot of Liverpool supporters also coming here, not only Scouser, but also American Liverpool supporters. I used to work at a hotel. A lot of American tourists came, and I had like a little pin and a little badge always at on my clothes. And I don't know how many times the people said like, "You never walk alone," and "Up the Reds," and all these things.
Yeah.
Crazy. And never stopped, and never stops amazing me all the time. Yeah. Just a short story.
And do you still follow Schalke, or is it just the Reds nowadays?
Kind of.
I know that their form is not that great.
No.
It hasn't been great for a while.
No, it wasn't. Not so much anymore. Not so much anymore. I still acknowledge what's happening. I still acknowledge the fan base. I still kind of know what's happening there. But I'm so much into Liverpool over the last years. I don't even follow any other really any other football club at all, or other league or something. Like I usually like watching like Classico or some derbies or something. But I mean, I do a podcast. We do the news things, the fan club things. There is not much time, and I'm happy when when I don't have to deal anything with football. so that's yeah. But let's see what's happening with Schalke in the next years.
I see a parallel here actually, because I'm obviously not from here, but I think a lot of people in our supporters club will tell me, well, you know, I used to follow American football, I used to follow baseball,
Mm-hmm.
but once I started following Liverpool, those things seem to be much less interesting to me, which is, I think, a similar parallel to kind of what you're describing. Is there's something that draws you in, which is different from whatever the other thing is.
Yeah, I mean, you have so many sports in the US, and then you have the distance in between. I mean, for us, it's just 1 hour or 1.5 hour by flight. We get more tickets, or we can just travel by train or whatever. Yeah. So it's much easier for us to follow. And probably most of us grew up with football, and the Americans grew up with other sports, or now they're starting to grow up with MLS and all these things. But I don't see it at all. I don't see a problem at all in all these things. Like, I mean, we have a lot of fans here that have a strong team from the Bundesliga they're supporting, or they say, yeah, my second team is a German team, and all these things, or I can't follow a German team anymore, or whatever. I don't like it. And then you have the traditional fans that grew up with the club where they lived. It's all okay. That's the beauty of the sport, I think. That's something you have to accept it. You have to tolerate it, and I think it's great. It's great if you fall in love with something like this. Why not? It's okay.
It is definitely okay.
Yeah.
Hytham, do you have another question? Because I do, of course.
I do, and you know, it's just a follow up to something that you said, Andre. You mentioned that you put together. You have a podcast, which is fantastic. But you said you put together. Is it a newsletter or game analysis? Do you send it to your, members, or is it something for? Is it for something else?
We have a complete news homepage. So basically, we have a page that gives you all the news about Liverpool, like the breaking news, match day build up, podcast and events and everything, analysis, comments or blog or something. Everything is in there. People are contributing to it, and and everything else is also in there. So when you become a member, you can do this through the homepage, and you choose a fan club and all this. So everything is combined, and I always have to look. Sometimes I have to be the bad guy. I'm like to the writers, like, okay, it's Friday evening. Why isn't there any news? So who's gonna write something? But yeah, it's still fun. Yeah,
and awesome. No, I was just going to say, I don't know how you find the time to do it, but it seems like you have some help, which is great.
Home office, mate. Home office.
There you go.
No, I got some help. I got some help. Everybody's doing their fan club, and we have a few writers. We have a student that is also want to go into journalism, so he writes a lot, and yeah, people contribute. That's otherwise it doesn't work.
So my simple question was: Is everything in German? Is that?
Yeah. That's actually the situation. I mean, I don't see any reason why there should be another English Liverpool content page when you have so many great ones. Or like I don't want to censor it or something, but I think it's so much out there, and some things are really good, and some things they just fall over because there is so much. No, but we decided to do this in German because there is a difference. Like we don't grow up with English now we are growing up with English, but people like to read in German. Like every movie that comes to Germany has German voices. We have a huge synchronization scene in Germany, so that's our focus. The same with the Danish guys. Everything in Danish. That's okay.
Makes perfect sense. No, I guess part of it was there's no point in us putting a link to most of our audience in the when we write up this podcast. So, but,
I mean, most of the browsers are now translating it. But
okay. So maybe we'll put a link. Well, let's do that.
That's nice. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No, the thing is, I really like what's happening over the years. I mean, the internet opens up so many opportunities. I mean, what happened with Redmen TV, AmphitRap, and I mean, this is Amphit just became how many years? 20 years or something. This is amazing work that they're doing. And then of course, you have a few other sites that also have a lot of readers, and this is just perfect. This is beautiful. Everybody can contribute, and then you have all these podcasts popping up, which are also very, very important, I think.
Yeah. Well, we see ourselves definitely at the bottom of that pyramid, but we sort of, so to be perfectly honest, I think we started this as a, like, how do people connected during the pandemic to something that they might identify with, and it's sort of it's morphed from there, but it's very much, I think, grounded in how do we relate to our local supporters and relate some of the things that they might see and not quite kind of understand.
Yeah, this is like one of the reasons why we also did this. We want to have some personal touch. We don't want to just write and use and say something. We always want to give our voice to it. Like when we talk about the Salah thing now, like is he signing a new contract? How much does he want and everything? We always put our voice in there, say like Liverpool should do this, blah blah blah, and all these. And we try to not do clickbait because there's so much clickbait out there. People are always getting too many bad news or wrong news, fake news, whatever. And the same with podcasts. I think it's so important that you just have a nice chat together and entertain people, and people get to know you better.
Yeah. I think entertain is probably a stretch goal for us, but that's but thank you. So I'm gonna ask one more question, and I'll ask you, Hytham, but from your perspective, obviously you were at that game, which in a lot of people's minds was a really exciting one to be at. Those that were there, the 5-4 over Alaves in Dortmund, 2001. That may not be, I'm guessing, your favorite Liverpool memory. So what is your favorite Liverpool memory?
Oh, I got a few I shouldn't tell openly. Okay. Some crazy ones. Now, I think one of my favorite memories is the boss night we did in Munich a few years back. This was something where we started to really kick off the Redmen family thing in Germany, the fan club thing, the connection between everybody, networking, doing like WhatsApp groups and saying like, okay, guys, let's meet here, let's meet there. Like a few days before, we did some a few years back, we had Redmen TV as guests, and Spitzer and Berger and all these. So these things started, and we did a walk with a few hundred people through Berlin to the stadium and all these things. And it kind of grew. And then the Boss Night thing was just writing them. It's like, do you guys want to have a chat? And shall we do a concert or something, like something small? And suddenly it blew up into something like we had over 2,500 people in there just for the Boss Night. Then again, people left for the game, and another 2,500 people came in. And just right after we organized everything, Peter Moore wrote us. He was CEO at the time. He said, like, I want to meet your supporters. And so we met in a very, very small location the day before that with 80 people or something. And he talked for 2 hours, and meet and greet and everything. And this kind of, these 2 days around the Bayern Munich game were probably two of them, the most special 42 hours I had. Slept for 2 days afterwards.
It probably didn't hurt that we beat Bayern 3-1, right? That probably didn't hurt.
Yeah, that was perfect. I didn't see half of the game because after the Boss Night, I was just lying in the backstage. That was crazy. No, but it's like, I mean, you had the BBC there, you had LFC TV there, Redmen TV were there, so everybody kind of knew each other. Amphit came in, and you had like a few players coming in, and everybody greeting each other. Then there was Paddy, the UFC fighter from Liverpool.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, do you know who this is? I don't know, but he looks nice. And we just had fun. And everybody was like, just the Liverpool way, like kind of friendly. Nobody was like thinking he was special. Jamie was so nice. Kieran was nice. And Timo was there too. And that was just so special. And there was nothing. I mean, it was 2,500 people in there. Beer were flying, cocktails were flying, toilets were destroyed. Everything was crazy. They had so many security, but nothing happened. They just had to bring one guy out because he was just lying in the middle somewhere sleeping. But that was it. Nothing happened. And that's what all these things are about for me. And the same when I go to a match day. But that's probably my most favorite memory at the moment.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So Hytham, do you have another question?
I'm good.
Oh, okay. All right.
It was great answers. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, it was. So we'll go to. So we'll pivot to talk about the Brighton game. I'm assuming that you've been to Anfield. I should have asked this before we started recording.
Yeah, a few times.
I'm kind of wondering what your best experience of being there was.
I watched the City game, the 3-1. That was crazy. That was probably one of the loudest stadiums I've ever witnessed, the loudest moments. Crazy, very forward, not like bad aggressive, but like forceful. That was a really great experience. And I once been to a Brighton game a few years back. That was a very, let's say, a boring 1-0. I was sitting in the Kop, and that was crazy. That was like one of this, which season was it, 17 or 18? I don't know. I had to sit in the Kop because everybody around me sat there. And there was this moment, I don't even know who got the ball, but I kind of knew something is happening. So I stood up, and then the goal happened, and everybody else was standing up. And that got caught on camera. You can still see it. I try to find the video for you guys. So you can see people just sitting and me just getting up, like, I don't know, how do you call these animals that come out of the ground? I don't know. But I was in the stadium, and in the break or at halftime, my handy just exploded because everybody's like all over the world, because I knew some people and connected through Facebook. Everybody's like, I saw you on TV. Are you in the stadium? That was funny.
That's awesome. I don't think I've ever been caught on TV at a game, which is probably just as well, frankly, because depending on the moment. Yeah. So
like poking in the nose. It's like, oh, that's boring.
Actually, somebody said to me after the game yesterday, it's like, oh, you're kind of like, I look, this isn't like, I love your calming presence, like, and I'm like, well, that's except when Liverpool play and someone does something bad to us, then it flicks a switch, which we don't want to talk about today. But we will talk about Brighton though. Let's go on and chat about that. We'll start with you, Andre. Obviously, it was a disappointing result, and 24 hours later, perhaps feels a little better putting it into context. But at the time, it felt incredibly disappointing having been 2-0 up. What was your take overall on the game?
Yeah, when we were 2-0 up, I thought, okay, this could be another job done early in the game, probably a 3-0 or something, or 3-1 right after the break. And I completely underestimated Brighton at that point. For me, it was an entertaining game at some point because it was just very quick, fast, a lot. But at some point, I was also disappointed that both teams did so many errors and were so. I don't know what everybody thought. I mean, we were really bad in the second half. We were not. The whole tactics seemed gone. We had no midfield and everything, and that kind of frustrated me because usually, let's say 2 years ago, we would have won that game, maybe 2-1 or something, or just 2-0, and then done, and you have the experience. But for this year, maybe there seems a mentality issue at some point. I mean, I don't think it's a big thing because at some point they will progress from this, especially for the Atletico match and then the West Ham match, for example. But yeah, that's 2 points dropped for me.
Absolutely was. One perspective, I'll go to you, Haitham. One perspective that I saw a lot in different places from those people who were melting down about all sorts of individuals was the Mane goal that was chalked off was a real momentum killer because they, even though it appeared Mane knew from the off it was not a goal, nobody else did, and 3-0 looks like game's over, and when it wasn't, it felt like that was a huge momentum swing. Felt like we weren't quite the same after that.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that particular talking point, and it could be true. I mean, if you really want to dig in, even the Salah goal that was chopped off the offside, I guess until that moment they were playing pretty well. But I went into this match with two things that I was certain about. The first one was how good Brighton is as a team. I knew it was going to be a difficult match. And I think, listening to the gaffer before the match, his press conference, and how he kept hitting on that point, like this is not going to be a cakewalk. And the second point was basically something that I talked about a couple of times in the past, I can't remember which episode of the podcast, but just the fact that we have a very depleted middle of the field, basically. So with the injuries, the recent ones, with Fabinho and the long-term ones with Thiago and Keita, no one was sure if he was going to play or not, and he played, but then he came off. So it was iffy. And just looking at the previous couple of matches, you could tell, it was one good match from the midfield, and the next one is iffy. So those are the two things that I, went into the match or had in mind before the match. So again, Andre touched on the midfield and how spotty it was and in the second half. But overall, to be honest, I enjoy matches like that more than the ones where we beat teams 5-0 and all that stuff. I like competition. I don't
unless
like
it's United, mate.
Unless it's United.
Unless it's United. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I wasn't too disappointed. Again, I think, Paul, I talked to you about the fact that I just understand if you want things, they're not going to be easy. This is not 2018. There's more competition. And you know, that's my overall mindset about this season. I try to enjoy matches and not be you know, a Debbie Downer. Like I say, I think I've said it multiple times. I'm enjoying this season so far, even with the ups and downs. Overall, I think it's positive.
Well, it's definitely better than last season. Let's start with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But last season was still great until this point.
Yeah.
It was great until mid-December, like the 7-0 of Crystal Palace.
So what? Whenever the crowds are absent, it felt whatever the game was, we lacked intensity for me, and I think that other teams lacked intensity too, for the most part, in some of those games, and some games they didn't. Like the Villa win, they suddenly decided that they were all up for that game, which probably wouldn't have happened with the crowd. A couple of things concern me, and I do want to talk just a little bit about this. We'll do one more round on the Brighton game. I try not to make up my opinion on the day of the game, and I try not to look at snap judgments about who was to blame for this one. But I've sort of, and I haven't looked at, I've seen the highlights and I haven't looked at the whole game back, which I usually do. But two things strike me. One is how easy it seemed to have been to blame Chamberlain. And one thing I would say is that he was our best presser, according to the stats in the game. He had 5 recoveries in Brighton's half. He had that great pass for the goal. I know that doesn't mean like everything he did was fantastic, but I think he was better than a lot of the feedback was. And I was surprised not to see more about something that we had pointed out before the United game, which was our back line at times isn't just not flat enough. Like their first goal, I think it was their first goal. Second goal came from Robertson basically playing the guy on side because he was like way away from the other 3 defenders. So, I mean, take it whichever way you want, Andre, but it just strikes me there's some people like are natural lightning rods for criticism and other people seem above it. But I feel like there's a couple of things that aren't quite right, but I'm not sure that the criticism was leveled at necessarily all of the right people.
I mean, this is a team sport. So if you are always looking for failure, it's the whole team at some point, because if you get a goal, you have to score 1 or 2. Yeah. And if the team doesn't do it, then it happens. It's not like everybody in the team says the next day, oh, Keita again injured, or Oxmate, you could have done that better or something, or Van Dijk, what's up with you? Yeah. Or Robo or something. This is not how it works. And this is easy to, like, it's easy to start this kind of critique. And I always find it funny because the last years, it was always Keita's fault for everything when he played. And now Keita was injured, and suddenly you see like in the chat groups and everywhere in the discussion, since when Keita had to leave, it seems like there was no midfield at all. Yeah. And I'm like, guys, really, seriously, please, this doesn't make sense to have this kind of discussions. But for me, it seemed like at some point they lost the communication in between, and they lost sight of everything. And of course you have situations like Konate was perfect for the United match, but it seemed slow for the Brighton on that side. Robbo seemed, I don't know what happened, but yeah, he seemed weak at times. He seemed overplayed or something. But still, I mean, he's the last line. Konate, Van Dijk, and Trent are the last line. So before that, you have Hendo, you had Oxlade, and you had Curtis. And before that, you have the front 3, because defending starts with the offense starting to defend. Yeah. So basically, something happened there, and they're definitely going to think through this game again and to see what's happening, because something like this happened with the Atletico game too. The 2 goals that shouldn't have been.
And Brentford too.
Yeah.
There was some of it. Yeah, there was some of it there.
Yeah, but also a great game for me as a fan.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
So that was good. But yeah, this is something they have to work on, and if that means that Oxlade-Chamberlain has to play more defensively, or Curtis Jones have to gain more weight to get into pressing or whatever, fine by me. I think they will sort it out at some point. And these games, it's better to have these games and not lose 3 points than have them later in the season when it's really important.
Yeah. And hopefully it won't happen later in the season. But a couple of things, Hytham, I'll go to you with. One is Klopp talked about body language, which I found quite disturbing, because I don't know about you, I don't recall him like critiquing the players very often. So that I thought that was an interesting comment in itself. I also thought that overall so I think, I can't remember who it was, someone in the Anfield Wrap said, oh, this team doesn't do what Liverpool used to do, which is win a big match and then draw the next one. And it like felt like, oh, this felt like one of those like after the big game performances where it wasn't quite right, passes weren't quite making it, people weren't quite in the right places. Was it about body language?
I was surprised actually when I heard him say that, because I wasn't sure what he was talking about. I mean, body language, you see it all the time. People get frustrated when things are not going their way. It's not like we're always like on and on. I mean, you see it all the time if you're watching games live. So I wasn't sure exactly what he was talking about. I did not see it, so I can't really comment on it. Obviously, the players were frustrated that things were not going their way. I get that piece, but I wasn't sure what that was about. And maybe he saw something that we did not see on TV. That's possible, but I'm sure it's out of frustration. And the whole thing about the drawing, I saw a stat that said 5 out of the last PL champions drew more than 4 games basically, or 1 out of the last 5 champions. So the 4 out of the 5 last champions drew at max 4 matches, which is where we are right now. And the last one that drew 5 was City last year, and they won it. But going back to the season before, these 5 seasons, I think 15-16, Leicester had 12 draws. So, and to me, this season has more competition. The past 5 seasons, it was just either one team that was crushing it or maybe 2 that are kind of like neck to neck. So I feel like there's more competition this season, and I feel like it's going to end up, you're going to have more draws by the champion, whoever they're going to be, hopefully us, of course. So I'm not really worried about that particular stat, as long as we don't just end up making it a habit, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I think where we are is we can only get 106 points now after those draws.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
It could be an invincible season.
Well, so it's Arsenal season where they didn't lose, drew a ton of games. I don't know what the number is. I'm sure if
something like more than 12, definitely. I think 16 or something.
A lot of draws. Yeah. So okay. So we obviously didn't come away from yesterday feeling great, but we're still on track for, I think it's like 80, close to 90 points. But I do think we definitely have to watch the draws, to your point, Hytham. That's for sure. So this week, though, coming up, we've got 2, I think, big games. And like this feels like a thing that you would never have said at the start of the season. The game against West Ham away feels bigger than the game at Atletico Madrid at home. Because we have the points already in the Champions League group, and we don't want to follow up a draw with Brighton with anything less than 3 points, I think. So let's start with Atletico. Read a few pieces reminding us that the last game before the pandemic was that rather dubious loss against Atletico in I think it was the round of 16, and a game that possibly should not have been played by all accounts. Atletico's form in Spain, I know Hytham's not looking at this, it doesn't feel like but they clearly for like 20 minutes looked really good against us until we kind of got ourselves back together and started to manage the game. So what's our biggest hope and biggest concern for that game, Andre?
No one gets injured. That's the biggest one at the moment. I hope that well, of course, nobody gets injured. We kind of maybe a 3-1 or something, very dominant way. We win against them. They can't do most of their black magic or dark magic or whatever you call it. I don't know. It's crazy what they're doing sometimes. And when we are not playing against Simeone, I find it funny. But when we are playing against him, you shouldn't be in the room. It's strange. But I think for us, it's really important now to get a kind of rhythm for the December, actually. The November, you have just a few games, you have an international break again, and then it goes full speed into the December, and you need kind of a rhythm. The players need to have a rhythm. The knocks that they're getting shouldn't be so bad, so that they can play through. So Fabinho gets back hopefully soon again, Keita, and all these players, Myrna, and that's my hope for this game. That's my hope, because I also think it's a European night, and it should be something special, and we should just seal the group win.
Yeah, I got to say, I totally identify with what you described, because before the game, the first leg, I guess the away match, somebody and one of the groups I'm on was like, "I hate these bastards." I'm like, "Oh, that seems a bit strong." And I was like watching them for like half an hour, and it's like, "Oh, I hate them too," like, because they really get under your skin, don't they?
I didn't want to use these words, but yes, of course.
Oh, we can put
all these things.
Yeah, we put explicit on every episode. Usually it's Daz, but occasionally it's me.
Yeah, there are more horrible words I sometimes say to these teams.
Obviously, I haven't listened to all of our episodes. But where am I going? Yeah. So I am thinking that my hope is that the result mirrors who we're able to play on Wednesday, because that my biggest concern is like, what's the lineup going to be, and how many people does he want to commit to this? Given a point against them does not feel like the worst thing. I know people are like, "Oh, it'd be great to finish up the group and then play out like matches that don't matter that much." But given I feel like Sunday's now become an even bigger game, I'm happy with a 1-1 or something like that, and that we don't have to play our best 11, and that we go into Sunday a bit angry at ourselves for having played the way we did against Brighton. We're feeling good that we've got kind of 10 points in the Champions League group and we're ready to go. Maybe my lack of ambition will catch me out, but what do you think, Hytham? What's your perspective?
Yeah, so again, going back to the biggest hope, my hope, I think I for one, I agree with Andre about not having any more injuries, but the biggest hope for me is to just kind of ameliorate the shenanigans that we had at the away leg, I guess. So just whatever mistakes that we did there, which I'm very confident that's going to happen. The defensive mistakes that cost us the 2 goals. So basically, I'm confident that the coaching staff and the gaffer are going to figure out a way to correct those. Yeah. And then just dealing with, I'm going to make you tick the box for sure. Paul, the shithousery that's Atletico. That's always there when Atletico is playing, and Simeone. It's very annoying, but it happens, and I can't imagine what the players go through when it happens. Each one of them acts like they got shot by a bullet when they get touched. So again, biggest hope is, and I think it's going to happen actually. We don't have a crazy match, and we still come out winners. I totally get it. We still have 3 more. Is it 3? 2 more matches. Yeah. We still, 2 more matches. If it's a draw, it's fine. And even if we lose, which is not going to happen, I'm not going to start panicking. So yeah. I mean, just hoping for a good game. Concerned about injuries.
Yeah, yeah. A couple of things just add to the. So Koke has become my least favorite player on the planet as a consequence of all the times we played them. I mean, he just seems the worst. Like every time he's touched, it's like he's been shot, and every time anyone gets near him, then or anytime he gets near one of our players, then they're liable to suffer an injury.
Yeah, all of them, have a blueprint in this guy. I'm not going to say his name.
Koke
Right
is
you know.
he must be Simeone in disguise or something. Yeah, yeah. So
Wait,
Yeah.
wait until we play Ramos again.
Yeah.
Is he even playing? Yeah, let's not even get on that.
Yeah, I think so.
I think he played his first match.
Did he?
This weekend? Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the one they won in injury time?
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. PSG. That's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
Let's wrap up. In terms of, so obviously, we'll be back after next week and talk about the West Ham game. Because we'll have to talk about that because then there's another international break. So what I wanted to lead off with was this is just like one last thing, one reflection on the week, and maybe it's your reflection is we're still in this race. It's all good. My reflection is actually, and I could have mentioned this during the conversation at the Brighton game is if that guy had not mishit that cross and it had gone in for the first goal, I suspect Liverpool's mentality would have been very different than and there's no quiet on this. But
you think that was a cross?
Yes, absolutely.
No, he did it on purpose.
No,
look at it.
You look at how he tries to shape. He's trying to curl it. He's not trying to curl it in the goal. He's trying to curl it. Yeah, yeah. So, by the way, just I was sat with a guy who's a coach yesterday. I'm like, he didn't mean that. He's like, I don't think so, because and it's not. He's not trying to. It doesn't look like he's trying to shoot as much as he's trying to bend it, and it ends up, I think, mishitting it, overhitting it. I think. That having happened made a big difference to yesterday.
I'm going to write him on Twitter. I'm going to ask him.
He's going to say, "Oh, it's a great shot, right?"
Yeah.
Yeah, he did it. He did say it was a great shot and a great honor to score at Anfield. But I'm asking him, did you try? Really try?
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. I'm going to tag you there.
Happy to, but I don't. Well, it was a very unconventional shot. If that was a shot, yeah. So last thoughts, Andre. Thank you, by the way, for joining us. It's been awesome to have you to chat to.
It's great being here.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for inviting me. I love this.
Yeah. So you still think we're going to win the league?
You really asked me that now?
Well, finish up with whatever you want. Indeterminate is a good answer. Like to be determined. What's the question? That's a valid answer.
I'm always going for the league. Of course, I'm always going for the league. The same as I'm always going for a win until the game is over. I think we are going to be very successful this season. Maybe the league title or a tight race and something in the European Cup, who knows? But could also go the complete other way. You know how this works. You don't know this, but yeah, I think one title this season.
Yesterday, I was leaning Champions League more than I was league title, but that was a momentary reaction. So Haitham, I guess you have the last word this week.
Yeah. So obviously the streak, the scoring streak that Salah Mo had was snapped yesterday. But we have another one on the women's side. Leanne Kiernan.
Yeah.
So 5, is it 4? Yeah, 4 matches where she's scoring. She scored twice in 2 matches. Just something I saw and really liked. But yeah, again, just going back to your comment, Andre, about winning the league. To be honest, I just want a good season and good football, and whatever comes out of it, if it's a win, that's fantastic. But more, I'm more concerned about just watching good football by my favorite team.
It feels like a great place to end. Haitham, thanks once again for joining us. Andre, hopefully we'll have you come back on.
definitely.
Well, and maybe the end of the season when we can account about how well we've done, and hopefully that'll be a celebratory show. We will be back next week to talk the outcome of the Atletico home game and the away at West Ham. Not sure if we're going to have a guest, but thanks again. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with a friend. Follow us on Twitter. We only tweet and retweet from sources we think are credible. And hope you liked our Halloween pumpkin if you're following us on Twitter this week. Thank you.